Hi, this is Judy from Bungalow Quilting and Yarn. You want something fun and something fast that's going to completely transform any room of your house, or along a wall, or along the edge of a crib, along the edge of a table, and something fast, something that'll make it look like you fussed for hours. It'll transform the look of your party, whether it's a holiday party or just even having people over for a picnic in your screened-in porch or in your camper. Let's watch this and see just how much fun this project is going to be. Okay, here they are. This is nothing new under the sun. We've been sewing these for decades, right? If you watch that show called The Midwife, they've always got these hanging up at their little parties and their little community gatherings, and they're just nothing new. But people rarely think of it when they're thinking about how can I add just a little touch to my party and just make it look festive without having to sew, well, table napkins and placemats and things like that, which also are fabulous, and table runners. But if you don't have time to do that and you just want to do something fast that you can store away and put back up again repeatedly, these pennants are perfect for that. I'm going to show you a picture of my daughter's wedding. I sewed a bunch of these to put in the tent, and for every single picture that came out of this wedding from the photographer, you could see these little flags flapping in the wind in the background, and it completely made the picture. Just look at these, how much fun. And these were done from my scraps, bolt ends, things that didn't match. Just imagine if you started making these according to a theme, how much fun that would be. So here are the pennants, and you can see how in every single picture they were absolutely remarkable. They were just so beautiful. You could see them behind the guests and behind the bride and groom, and they just made the whole picture, all the pictures turn out just fantastic. So how do you decide what fabric to use? When you're picking out your fabrics, that you do some type of a theme. You can have them be random and you can have them be really fun, different scraps, but you can also do a theme. So let's say you were doing something for someone's ski cottage. You could do something like this and alternate these fabrics as the pennants. You could also do something like this that simulates a fun summer day or a summer kitchen setup. That would be fun, alternating these. Make sure you do it across different fabric lines, not just one fabric line, otherwise it looks contrived. These two are from Moda. This one is from a different company entirely. It's from Wyndham. And this one's from Michael Miller. And this one here is also from Wyndham. So when you do that, when you cross into different companies of fabric, it just gives it more spark. It doesn't look as flat. The colors are similar but not exact, and so it looks less contrived. I think that these three fabrics are fun together. You of course would add more from your stash, but it would be cute for a little girl's room. Butterflies with bows and little tiny micro flowers. How about something just to jazz up somebody's kitchen? You don't have to have a reason. Just hang pennants there just for the fun of it. What do we do when we make a table runner? We jazz up our kitchens and make them look fantastic. Anytime you walk around the corner and you see that, just the same thing with these pennants. You don't have to have a good reason. It's not going to have to be a party or anything. Just hang some pennants in the kitchen. Now just think about how great this idea would be if you don't want to make somebody an entire quilt that just takes too long, but you want to give something to somebody that's meaningful and super fun and bright and cheerful and happy. Great idea to make these pennants. Hey, I have an idea. Make it for someone's camper or your own camper. Look at this color combination and think if you alternated these as pennants, how much fun that would be. But remember, keep them across various lines of fabric, because if you put them all from the same line of fabric, it's going to look contrived. It's so much more fun to combine things from other lines. So this is a Michael Miller. This one's from Dear Stella. This is from Timeless Treasures right here. This one's from Andover, and this one's from Robert Kaufman. And yet, look at how beautifully they all go together. It's so much fun. You know what you could do is you could make these and have your own camper set up in your driveway. You don't have to go far. Have a meal outside on the grill. set up your camper and put these pennants out. Invite the neighbors over. Super fun. Okay, so exactly what do we need for this project and how much stuff is this actually going to take? Well, if you remember what I said in the very beginning, you can just do these from scraps. It doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to have a theme. A theme would be way fun and way cool, but you can do it with just scraps. So have your scraps of fabric, and each piece needs to be the size that you want your little flags to be, or your little pennants to be. So if you want them to be 10 by 10 inches at least, then you're going to need pieces of fabric that are at least that size. If you want them smaller, then they can be smaller. But you're going to need some pieces of paper. Remember, you're going to probably make a few mistakes, and so you're going to have multiple pieces of paper to recut your different shapes. You're going to need a scissors for paper too. Don't forget, you can't use your good sewing scissors for the paper. You're going to need a paper scissors, and you're going to need a sewing scissors. And you may need a rotary cutter if you are so inclined to cut around your shapes with a rotary cutter as opposed to a scissors. And you are going to need some plain fabric, such as this, like a Kona solid or a Moda solid or something like that, to make your own bias strip along the top of these pennants that they are going to hang from. So you're going to need to cut strips, not just the shapes. You're going to need to cut strips out of a plain piece of fabric so that you can hang these. Okay, so I'm going to take my piece of paper, and remember, you want these to be symmetric. If they're a triangle, you're going to want them to be like a perfect triangle. You're not going to want it to be the angles to be different on each side. So the best way to make something symmetric is to take your piece of paper and to fold it completely in half like this. If you have one of these fun triangle rulers or rulers that have different angles, you certainly could just trace that and cut around it with a rotary cutter on your fabric. Okay, but I'm going to talk about the way to do this where the majority of people that don't have all kinds of quilting equipment could make these as well. But yes, you could certainly trace or use your rotary cutter around a nice acrylic template ruler, what have you, for making your flags, for making your pennants. So I'm going to draw a shape on here and make it symmetric by having my fold here and cutting a nice crisp triangle like this. Okay, so I'm going to draw like this. And I'm going to take my paper scissors and crummy paper scissors, and I'm going to cut along here. And you're going to see that you have a nice triangle. If this is too short and squatty, you can make it longer like this by making it skinnier, however you want to do it. All right. What if you wanted to do something a little fancier, like maybe with a curve at the bottom? You could take something that was rounded and like a plate or something and trace along the bottom here. Make a curved edge around the bottom with your pencil, and it's going to look exactly the same on the opposite side because this is on a fold, right? So you could do something like this, or you know what you could do is you could do triangle, curve, and do alternating shapes. So not only would you have alternating fabrics, you could also have alternating shapes on your string of pennants. That one's kind of cute, right? That would be cute to have them that shape next to ones that are like this. Alternate them. That would be fun too. You could do, now the ones that I did I used a go cutter, but like I said, not everybody's going to have a go cutter. So I had the pennant die cutter for mine, so it went a lot faster. And not the ones that I showed you at the very beginning. Those were very organically drawn and using my scraps. But the ones that I'm going to show you at the end of this video, I used a die cutter for. So here is another idea. You could certainly go like this and like this. Okay, and cut. Oops, haha, I almost grabbed my fabric scissors. Something like this. And if you don't like it, it's just paper, but you're just trialing it. Oh, look at how cute that is. That's super cute. I like that. That is fun. Now, you could do all of these or do all three. Do 3 different ones. Okay, so this is going to be our pattern. So you have a pattern, and now you need to pin it onto your fabric, and your fabric needs to be right sides together. So let's take some scraps and show you how that's done. Okay, so now I have my scrap of fabric. Isn't this a cute print? And I've got 2 layers, right? And they're wrong sides together. They have to be mirror image. Well, actually, these are symmetric, so they wouldn't have to be. But you're going to put them right sides together or wrong sides together or what have you. You're going to have 2 layers. And then you're going to pin around your outside edge. Pin around your outside edge. And when you're cutting these out, then make sure you don't cut the paper because you don't want it to become smaller and smaller every single time. One of the ways that you can do this is if you're doing this out of paper, and like I said, you don't want this to become smaller and smaller every single time, you can lay your little ruler along the edge. This works better if you have flat-headed flower pins. I've got these round pins, but if you have flat-headed flower pins, then you don't have that lump underneath your ruler. But what you can do is put your ruler there, okay, cut along that edge. And then you're not cutting your paper, and you're not having to use a scissors, and it goes really fast. Okay, you could even do it like this, lay it this way. This is a trick that I use for lots of times when I'm cutting things using a paper template, and I don't want to use a scissors. Just use your rotary cutter and put it up against it and next to it. There you go, see? That way you're not worrying about the flathead pins or anything like that. You don't have to have special pins. Put it next to it. All right, like this. And then you might want to just use the scissors for this interior section here. Cut this away and then cut it out. Okay, and there you go. Now you have it. And let's say you cut out, however many you needed of these, 20. Or maybe you did 10 of these and 10 of a different shape. Then you are going to keep them together in their pairs, like they are. This looks like a giant tooth. And then you're going to put them right sides together and go over to your sewing machine and sew them with a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around. All right, 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around. Okay, so now you're going to go about sewing these right sides together, like I said, at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You're not going to sew this top edge together. That is going to be open, left open for turning it right sides out. But you're going to sew around the entire perimeter of this except for up here. And then when you get to these, we're going to pivot, and I'm going to show you what that means. Okay, so these don't have to be perfect because, like I said, they are just a pennant. It's not a garment. It's not a quilt. This is supposed to be just for fun. So if you don't get your 1/4 inch exactly perfect on the pivot point, don't get too upset with yourself. Now, Bernina's presser feet have little notches where you can see exactly where the 1/4 inch is. So here is exactly where my 1/4 inch would be if I turned the corner. All right, so there we go. Turn this corner, that was pivoting. You put your needle stop down, and then you turn. So we're going to go up here. There's my 1/4 inch on the notch in the back here. And then you leave your needle in there, and that's how you pivot. You just kind of swing it around. And this is how you pivot. Leave your needle stop down. And that's pivoting. You go all the way up to the top. And you don't close up this top edge here because that's the edge that's going to be used for turning right sides out. I'm going to back stitch a little because when I turn it right sides out, I don't want that to come loose. Now, now we can trim. See, we're going to trim right there. What we're going to do is we're going to decrease the bulk by trimming there, okay? Let me put the light a little bit on it. There we go. So you can see that a little bit better. And that's really glary. But we're going to trim that edge, or that we're going to trim the point. Now you could trim it even a little bit more like this, so you get a really crisp edge. Don't trim too much, and don't cut your threads there, because you're going to have a hole then, is what's going to happen. Like I said, this doesn't have to be perfect because it's not a garment and it's not a quilt. Now, what do you do about this, right? Because it's an inward curve, we don't just clip like this. That wouldn't be enough. So we're going to cut a little bit out of there to make like a little V. We're going to cut a little out of there and make sure that we, see that? Cut a little bit out of there so that it's nice and neat when we turn it right sides out. And then again, we'll trim over here. Now you have one whole one done, and if you're just doing it for the edge of a table or the edge of a crib, you can see how quickly this is going to go. And then we're going to turn it right sides out. Now when I turn it right sides out, I'm going to use a dull knitting needle to push my points forward. Push my points out. Because I don't want to use something really super sharp to push my points out, because I'll make a hole in my fabric. So I'm pushing my points out with this dull little knitting needle. You can use a turning bodkin. That works really, really well if you have one on hand. Not everybody has a turning bodkin, but they do work really nicely for these kinds of things. If you sew garments, a lot of people that sew stuffed animals or garments will have a lot of those little things available to them. Don't resist all urge to take your scissors and poke it out. Don't do that. All right, like I said, this looks like a tooth. It's kind of funny. Maybe kind of a cute theme. Tooth fairy. All right, so now we've got these right sides out. We're going to go to the iron and press it. And then we have this bottom point here that's going to need to be worked a little bit and pressed so that we have a nice little pennant. Now you're going to do a bunch of these. You're going to do about, I don't know, however many you need to make your pennant go across your bottom of your table, or across the bottom of a changing table, or across your room for a party. And so you're going to have a measurement, and we're going to be working next on those strips that you're going to make for hanging these up. The next thing you're going to do is cut your strips. I'm cutting 2-inch strips using a rotary cutter and a ruler, and you could use a pencil and draw a line and use your scissors if you're not a quilter and you don't have all this equipment available to you. But I cut 2-inch strips of a plain fabric, a very plain fabric, and then cut off the selvage edges. So cut as many 2-inch strips as you're going to need to make your distance, and then add at least 12 inches on both sides to the measurement. So if your room is 6 feet and you want it to bow a little bit, you might want to cut these so that you have a 7-foot long strip, and then add 2 feet. So you're going to need 9 feet, because you have to have a foot on each end to attach it to a command hook. So this is 44 inches wide. All right, so 44 inches times whatever it takes to make the number of inches that you need to go across your room, plus a little bit extra because you want it to bow. You don't want to be strung tightly or straight across, although you might. You can make them go straight across and do multiple rows of them. That would be beautiful too. But measure your room. This strip of fabric is 44 inches wide. That means the fabric is 44 inches wide, so this strip is 44 inches long by 2 inches wide here. And then you're going to add 12 inches on either end to make a little loop to hang on your command hooks. So you're going to cut multiples of these so that you can fit these across your room or across wherever you're trying to decorate.
Now let's talk about sewing those strips together.
Okay, so now I've laid these like this, like an inverted L, or the number 7, okay? I cut off my selvage edge. I've got them laid together like this. See the 2 layers? I'm going to stitch them along the diagonal. You don't have to do this. You can butt them up right sides together like this. You could do that. okay? You could butt them up together and sew them like that. That would work out just fine too. This is not a quilt binding. These are just pennants. But I'm going to do this like this. So you can see I've already got this other piece pressed. So you're going to do it like this. Never mind the fact that those other pieces were already pressed. I want to show you what you're going to do here to sew it on the diagonal. So this is going to be sewn on the diagonal from this corner to this corner. I'm going to clip my threads. I don't know if I've got garden fingers here. It's the middle of June, and up here in the Great White North, we are still putting in our gardens, so my nails might be slightly stained from the dirt. Okay, so now you've got this nice joining. All right. Now you have, now when I did this, I don't remember if I said right sides together. If you're using something with a print, you're going to need to put these right sides together. This is a cone of cotton. There is no right and wrong side. So you can just put them together for your first two. Once you join them, you now have a right and wrong side. This is the right side. This is the wrong side. So for future additions, when you keep adding strips to this, there is a right and wrong side. So pay attention to that, because otherwise you're going to end up with one being sewn the wrong way. Okay, so now I've clipped that seam allowance down to 1/4 inch, and I'm going to press that. All right, I'm going to press that. Get a good press. See, my pressing mat is just full of threads, because sewing is my favorite thing to do, and I never stop to take time to clean that off. All right, so now you're going to turn these each under 1/2 inch here and 1/2 inch here. Just eyeball it. You don't have to measure it exactly. Okay, so, and you're going to continue to do that the whole way down and iron it. That's why you saw that it was pressed before, because I had previously started pressing this other strip. Make sure you get it so that it's a nice, even press all along, so there aren't some wide spots and some narrower spots. See, this was pressed before. So you're going to continue to do this all the way down your strip. Now, if your strip is 7 feet long or 8 feet long or whatever it is, you can also put some Mary Ellen's Best Press on here. That really helps to hold that tight. If that's how long your strip is, then you're going to have to do this all the way down. Doesn't really take that long, but you could choose to do this with a printed fabric too. It'd be kind of cute if you wanted to add something to but you also don't want to detract from the printed pennants that you have. Okay, so I think you get the point. You're going to press this all the way like this down to the end. Okay, now we've talked about making the strips, pressing them, sewing them together, and then pressing them. And now we're going to talk about actually putting the pennants on here. Now, let's say this is your first pennant that you're sewing, and you've got this big long strip, and you're going to be adding the pennants subsequent to this one. So you're going to leave on this end, you're going to leave at least 12 inches of a tail, all right? If this is your first one, at least 12 inches of a tail, because you want to attach it to your command hooks or whatever kind of hooks you're using. So what I've done here is I've laid this down onto here. This is the middle where you crease the sides to 2 edges in, and then this is the center. All right, this is the back, the inside. This is the outside of it. Here is my top where I have not sewn them together. If you're a new sewer and you haven't done much sewing before, you're going to really probably want to hand baste this. By hand baste, I mean a running stitch with a needle and thread, which is very simple to do. It's just up and down with a needle and thread through all the layers to keep them together, so that when you go and sew them together with the sewing machine, they're going to all stay put. All right, so what you're going to do then is pin this and then take a needle and thread and just go up and down through all the layers and baste this together. I'm not going to do that because I've been doing this kind of thing for like 100 years. So I'm what you would do is you're going to start way back here and stitch this down, stitch this closed. For the 12 inches prior to this beginning, you're going to stitch it closed, okay? And you're going to come up to, so this is all stitched closed. I'm coming up to my pennant, and I'm going to make sure that I'm getting through all 3 layers. There's 2 layers from the strip on top, 2 layers from the strip on the bottom, and then there's 2 layers of this fabric. So it's not 3 layers, it's 6 layers of fabric total, but actually 3 items or 3 objects. Okay, so I'm going to stitch close to the edge without falling off the cliff. That's what I always tell my little 8-year-olds when I'm teaching them to sew. You want to stitch right close to this edge here, but you don't want to fall off the cliff. So stitch close to this, and you have to be catching the one in the behind here too. So you're going to, in the very least, you're going to have it pinned, but you're going to, if you're new at this, you're going to hand baste this. Now you're going to continue to do this all the way down, and you're going to, now I'm going to, this is my space in between my 2 pennants. Now in the next video clip, you're going to see that my pennants are red, white, and blue, and that's because I didn't do this videotaping consecutively. All right, the pennants that I chose to make for my screened-in porch are red, white, and blue. So the next video you see is the pennants are going to look a little bit different. Okay, so now you have to make a decision as to how much space you want from the end of this pennant to the next pennant. And so that's where we're going to pick up in the next video clip, and you'll see my red, white, and blue ones. Okay, so now the question becomes, how do you know how far apart to space your pennants? All right, oops, I'm trying not to make this shake, this camera. Let me move that angle a little bit. Okay, so I put mine down on the first, let's find the end of it. I put mine, I started here, okay, and sewed it. I left a long, or that's the wrong end. I left a long tail so that I could tie it to a beam, or if I wanted to tie it to a command hook. So here's my long tail. Okay, I left this long tail. And then I sewed my first one on. And then from the end of this one, you need to just start somewhere. Sew your first one on. If you try to say, okay, this is 4 inches wide, so that's going to take up 4 inches. I want 5 inches in between. So every 9 inches, I'm going to sew. You could do that, but then it's a lot of pinning. It's a lot of math to try to figure that out. What I did is you just randomly pick a spot after leaving your long tail and sew one in there. Then from here to here is the distance you choose. It's entirely up to you how far you want these pennants to be spaced. I did 5 inches, okay? So then at 5 inches I pinned, and then I sewed another one in there, and then measured from here again to here. That was 5 inches, and I just kept sewing them in. All right, so you want to know what kind of look you're looking for. If you want them right next to each other, right on top of each other, that's entirely up to you. Okay, so now here's where I stopped for the purposes of the video. Okay, and here is where I'm going to sew next. I'm doing from here to here is going to be 5 inches. So I take my ruler or my measuring tape, and I measure 5 inches away from the end of this one. And I don't know, you might think this is a lot of pinning and you would rather do this all in advance, doing your math and your measurements. I don't know. I just find that I make more mistakes when I do that. I'm not exactly a mathematical genius, and not that basic addition should be that hard, but it does get, all balled up if you have this plan of exactly how you're going to space them. I'm a fly by the seat of my pants kind of girl. So here we go. So, okay. So this is how I'm going to sew these two together. These are folded over. You see that these are folded together. It's folded in half. That's what you made when you ironed, that's what you did. You folded it in half then after that. Now I'm coming up to my pin, put needle stop down, and I'm going to add, again, randomly, however you want if you want red, blue, or if you want, all the pinks and then all the blues or whatever, however you're going to do it. Now, did you see how I slid that in there? I just slid it in there so this was up to the fold, that unsewn top edge. And you're going to sew far enough in so that you're catching all the layers. And you can put pins in there too and look at both sides to make sure that you are indeed catching all the layers. I've just done this so much and for so long that I'm pretty sure that I'm going to catch all the layers. Okay, again, I'm going to measure 5 inches from the end of that pennant to here is 5 inches. And I'm going to put a blue, well, how long has it been since I've had a gold one? I was throwing in some gold ones. These are patriotic. And I thought gold is kind of cool because if it's patriotic, we have gold sparklers, we have gold stars on uniforms, we have, I think the gold is kind of a nice touch to add to the red, white, and blue. Okay, so here's my gold shiny, it's from Wyndham, this fabric. It's an amazing, it's just solid gold print on top of cotton. So it washes nicely. It's great using it for Christmas projects. Throw it into quilts and table runners. Okay. That's a lot of flair to it. Okay, so then when you just continue on this way, I'm going to measure my 5 inches again, and I'm just going to continue to add my pennants till I come to the end, and I know that I've got a long enough tail that I can hang it onto a command hook or a beam or whatever you want to hang it to. Okay, voila, there we have them. Beautiful. Really makes a lot of difference when you add them to a room or any small space. So pretty. I love it when they kind of flap in the wind. Isn't that nice? Easy to do and makes a big difference in the appearance. So grab up your scraps or a theme or some type of plan. Oh, and make sure to hang them nice and tight because in the humidity, the fabric will stretch a little bit and they'll sag down a little bit. So when you put them up there, string them up there a little bit tighter than you normally would. So enjoy.